2 days before my wedding, I found my fiancée in bed with my best man. Not through a text message, not through rumors. I walked in on them in the honeymoon suite I'd already paid for. She begged me to keep quiet, to not ruin everything over one mistake. So I smiled, said we'd talk later, and went home to plan the most unforgettable rehearsal dinner anyone in our families would ever witness. What happened next didn't just end our engagement. It exposed every lie she'd told, destroyed her perfect image, and taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's letting the truth speak for itself in front of everyone who matters. Chapter 1. The Honeymoon Suite That Destroyed My Future. My name is Ryan Mitchell, and 2 years ago, I was supposed to be the happiest guy in Boston. I'm 31 now, but back then I was 29, working as a senior account manager at a tech consulting firm in the financial district, pulling in a solid 6 figures, and about to marry the woman I thought was the love of my life. Her name was Jessica Hartley, blonde, beautiful, ambitious marketing director at a boutique agency in Back Bay. The kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room and knew exactly how to work it. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months, and our wedding was set for a Saturday in late September at this gorgeous vineyard in the Berkshires. Everything was planned down to the last detail. Jessica had spent months, honestly, probably closer to a year, obsessing over every element. The flowers, the music, the seating chart, the custom cocktails named after us. I dropped close to $60,000 on this wedding, which sounds insane, I know. But when you're in love and your fiancé keeps saying it's our one special day, you just write the checks and smile. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I ignored. The way Jessica always needed to be the center of attention. The way she flirted with other guys right in front of me and then gaslight me when I called her out, saying I was too jealous or too insecure. The way she'd spend money we didn't have on designer clothes and expensive dinners, always justifying it as networking or investing in our image. But when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags, you know? The day everything imploded was a Thursday, exactly 2 days before our wedding. I'd taken the afternoon off work because I wanted to surprise Jessica. We booked the honeymoon suite at the Fairmont Copley Plaza for our wedding night. This ridiculously luxurious room with a king-size bed, a separate sitting area, and these massive windows overlooking the city. The hotel had given me early access to key cards as a courtesy since we were spending so much money there, and I'd gotten this romantic idea to set up champagne and roses in a room before the wedding as a surprise for her. So there I was, around 3 p.m, walking through the elegant lobby of the Fairmont with a bouquet of 24 red roses in one hand and a bottle of Dom Perignon in the other, feeling like the luckiest guy alive. I took the elevator up to the 8th floor, walked down that plush carpeted hallway, and used my key card to open the door to room 847, our honeymoon suite. The first thing I heard was laughter. Her laughter, that high-pitched, flirty giggle Jessica did when she was trying to be sexy. And then I heard a man's voice, low and intimate, saying something I couldn't quite make out. My brain didn't process it immediately. I actually thought maybe she brought some girlfriends up to see the room, that maybe the guy's voice was coming from a TV or something. But as I pushed the door open wider and stepped inside, reality hit me like a freight train. Jessica was in bed. Our bed. The honeymoon suite bed I'd paid for. She was naked, tangled up in the sheets with someone, and when they both turned to look at me, frozen in that horrible moment of recognition, I saw exactly who it was. Derek Thompson, my best man, my best friend since college, the guy who'd stood next to me at every major moment of my adult life. Time did this weird thing where it simultaneously slowed down and sped up. I remember every detail with this crystal clarity that still haunts me. The way Jessica's face went from pleasure to shock to panic in about 2 seconds flat. The way Derek scrambled to pull the sheets up over himself, his face turning this blotchy red color. The way the roses slipped from my hand and scattered across the floor. The sound of the champagne bottle hitting the carpet with a dull thud. Ryan. Jessica's voice cracked as she lurched out of bed, wrapping the sheet around herself like some kind of modesty afterthought. Oh my God, Ryan, this isn't... we can explain. Dude, I'm so sorry, Derek started, but I held up my hand. I couldn't speak. Literally couldn't form words. My throat had closed up, and my chest felt like someone was standing on it. I just stood there, staring at the two people I'd trusted most in the world, watching them scramble and panic, and try to figure out what to say that could possibly make this okay. Jessica stumbled toward me, still clutching the sheet, mascara already starting to run down her face, even though she hadn't started crying yet. That would come in about 5 seconds. Baby, please, just listen to me. This was a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. I've been so stressed about the wedding, and Derek was here helping me with something, and we had some wine, and it just happened. It doesn't mean anything. I swear to God, it doesn't mean anything. Derek had gotten out of bed by this point, hopping around trying to pull on his jeans while keeping his eyes down like if he didn't make eye contact, this whole situation would somehow be less real. Ryan, man, she's right. We've been drinking and talking about the wedding, and things got out of hand. It's the first time. I promise you it's the first time, and it'll never happen again. You gotta believe me, bro. That word, bro, snapped something in me. This guy had just been in bed with my fiancée 2 days before my wedding, and he had the audacity to call me bro, like we were still buddies who just had some minor disagreement about a football game. Get out, I said quietly. My voice sounded weird in my own ears, flat and cold. Ryan, please. Jessica reached for my arm. Don't touch me, I said, stepping back. Derek, get the hell out. Now. Derek grabbed his shirt and shoes, not even bothering to put them on, and practically ran for the door. He paused for just a second, opened his mouth like he was going to say something else, then thought better of it and disappeared into the hallway. Jessica was full-on crying now, that ugly kind of crying where snot mixes with tears, and words come out in these hiccuping gasps. Ryan, I love you. I love you so much. I want to marry you. This was just cold feet, just stupid last-minute panic, and I know it was wrong, but please don't throw away everything we built over one mistake. Chapter 2, Planning the Perfect Exposure while playing the perfect groom. I didn't sleep that night, not even a little bit. I just sat in my apartment with my laptop open, a bottle of whiskey on the coffee table that I kept pouring but barely touched, and this cold, focused rage burning in my chest that felt nothing like any emotion I'd ever experienced before. See, here's what most people don't understand about betrayal. The initial shock wears off faster than you'd think, and then you're left with this crystal clear moment of decision. You can either fall apart and let them see you broken, or you can channel that pain into something productive. I chose the latter. First thing I did was go into our shared iCloud account. Jessica and I had linked everything when we got engaged: photos, calendars, contacts, notes, because that's what couples who trust each other completely do, right? Ironic, considering what I just walked in on. I scrolled through her text messages, and my stomach dropped even further when I realized this wasn't some drunken one-time mistake, like she claimed. There were months of messages between her and Derek. Months. Starting way back in June, right after Derek had agreed to be my best man. Flirty texts at first, little inside jokes, compliments about how good she looked in her Instagram photos, messages sent late at night when she was supposedly working late at her agency. Then they got more explicit. By July, they were talking about hotels, about sneaking away, about how excited they were that nobody suspected anything. One text from Jessica in early August made me physically sick. Can't wait until after the wedding when Ryan's traveling for work, and we can finally have a whole weekend together without hiding. She'd been planning to continue the affair after we got married. This wasn't cold feet or pre-wedding jitters. This was calculated, sustained betrayal, and she'd fully intended to keep it going while wearing my ring and spending my money. I took screenshots of everything. Every text, every photo they'd sent each other, every mention of hotels or meetups. Then I went into Derek's email. Yeah, he was still logged into my laptop from when we planned my bachelor party back in July and used my computer to book the Airbnb. The idiot had never logged out, and I'd never thought to check because, I trusted him. His email was a goldmine. Hotel confirmation receipts from the Fairmont Copley Plaza, not just from yesterday, but from 3 other occasions over the past 3 months. Receipts from expensive restaurants where he'd taken Jessica on dates while telling me he was working late or visiting his parents in Providence. even a receipt from a jewelry store in Newberry Street, where he'd apparently bought her a bracelet in July. A bracelet I'd never seen her wear, which meant she'd been smart enough to hide it. I downloaded every receipt, every confirmation email, every piece of evidence I could find. Then I created a separate folder on my desktop and organized everything by date. Bank statements from our joint account showing cash withdrawals that Jessica had made. Withdrawals I questioned at the time, but she'd explain away as wedding expenses or bridesmaid gifts. Turns out, she'd been using our joint money to pay for hotel rooms when Derek couldn't afford them on his associate attorney salary. By 3 a.m, I had a comprehensive timeline of their affair. Every lie, every meetup, every dollar spent, every moment they'd look me in the face and pretended nothing was wrong. And I had proof of all of it. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed a plan for how to use it. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for Friday night at Giordano's, this upscale Italian restaurant in the North End that Jessica had insisted on despite the $8,000 price tag for 75 guests. We'd already paid the deposit, already confirmed the menu, already sent out the invitations. Both of our families would be there, all of our wedding party, our closest friends. Basically, everyone who mattered in our lives, all gathered in one room to celebrate our love the night before our wedding. And that's when it hit me. This was a perfect opportunity. I could cancel the wedding quietly, send out an email, let Jessica control the narrative and tell everyone some sanitized version of we grew apart or it wasn't the right time. Or I could make absolutely certain that everyone knew exactly why this wedding wasn't happening and who was really to blame. I called the restaurant at 9 a.m. Friday morning. As soon as they opened, the manager, a friendly guy named Tony, who I'd been working with for months on the planning, answered on the third ring. "Tony, hey, it's Ryan Mitchell. I've got kind of an unusual request for tonight." "Sure, Ryan, what do you need?" "Everything's all set for 7 o'clock. "I know, and I really appreciate all your help with everything. But I need to make a special announcement during dinner, and I was hoping I could use your AV system to show a slideshow. Is that something you can set up?" Tony hesitated. "A slideshow? Like photos of you and Jessica?" "Something like that," I said, keeping my voice casual. "I want to surprise her with a tribute to our relationship. You know, really romantic. Pull at everyone's heartstrings. I've already got everything prepared on a USB drive. I just need a screen and a way to connect my laptop." "Oh, man, that's really sweet," Tony said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Yeah, we can definitely do that. We've got a projector and screen we use for private events. I'll have my guys set up in the private dining room before you arrive. Will you need a microphone, too?" "That would be perfect. Actually, thank you so much, Tony. And hey," I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Once I start presentation, it's really important that nobody interrupts or tries to turn off, even if things get a little emotional. It's a surprise, and I want everyone to see the whole thing. Can you make sure your staff knows to just let it play through?" "Absolutely," Tony said. "We'll make sure nobody touches anything. This is going to be such a great moment. Ryan, Jessica's a lucky woman." I almost laughed at that. Yeah, she really is. I hung up and looked at the folder of evidence on my laptop. Then I opened PowerPoint and got to work. The rest of Friday was the most surreal day of my life. I had to go through all the motions of being the excited, nervous groom-to-be while knowing exactly what was about to happen. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Jessica. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Only one more day until we're married. I love you so much." Each message making me feel more disgusted than the last. Derek texted me too. "Hey man, I know yesterday was weird, but I'm really sorry and I hope we can move past it. You're my best friend, and I'd hate for anything to mess that up. See you tonight at dinner." The sheer audacity of this guy. He'd slept with my fiancée less than 24 hours ago, and now he was acting like we'd had some minor disagreement about where to grab lunch. I responded to both of them with bland, normal messages. Told Jessica I love her too and couldn't wait for tonight. Told Derek we were cool and not to worry about it. Let them both think they'd gotten away with it. That I was just a chump who'd chosen to look the other way rather than face the uncomfortable truth. My parents called around noon to check in, and talking to them almost broke me. My mom was so excited, going on and on about how beautiful the ceremony was going to be, how proud they were of me, how much they already loved Jessica like a daughter. My dad, who never got emotional about anything, actually said he was looking forward to dancing with Jessica at the reception and welcoming her officially into the family. I made it through conversation without giving anything away, but after I hung up, I had to sit down because my hands were shaking again. What I was about to do wasn't just going to end my relationship with Jessica. It was going to devastate my parents, embarrass both families, and potentially destroy friendships that had lasted years. But then I thought about Jessica and Derek in that hotel room. I thought about the months of lies. I thought about the fact that she'd been planning to keep cheating on me after we got married, that she'd been spending our money to fund her affair, that she'd look me in the eye every single day and smile while betraying me in the worst possible way. And I realized that the temporary pain of exposing the truth was nothing compared to the permanent damage of marrying someone who'd already proven she didn't respect me, value me, or deserve me. The rehearsal itself was at 4 o'clock at the church in Brookline where we were supposed to get married. I showed up in slacks and a button-down, forcing smiles and handshakes with all the groomsmen, hugging bridesmaids who kept telling me how lucky I was. Jessica looked stunning in a casual sundress, playing the role of the blushing bride-to-be, laughing and taking selfies and posting them on Instagram with captions about the best weekend of my life starting now. Derek arrived 10 minutes late, looking nervous but trying to play it cool. When he saw me, he did this awkward bro hug thing and clapped me on the back. "Hey man, ready for the big day?" I looked him right in the eye and smiled. "Oh, I'm more than ready. Tonight's going to be unforgettable." He laughed, completely missing the edge in my voice. "That's what I like to hear. Let's do this." The rehearsal went smoothly. The pastor walked everyone through their positions and cues. Jessica kept giggling and squeezing my hand, and I played along perfectly. Loving fiancé, devoted partner, excited groom. Every single person in that church thought they were watching a fairy tale come together. They had no idea they were about to witness a nightmare. After the rehearsal wrapped up around 5:30, everyone headed to Giordano's. The private dining room Tony had set up was beautiful. White tablecloths, candlelight, flowers everywhere, and there at the front of the room was a projector screen and microphone I'd requested, all set up and ready to go. Jessica saw it and grabbed my arm, confused. "Babe, what's that for?" "Oh, I wanted to do a little something special tonight," I said, kissing her forehead. "A surprise for you. Don't worry about it." She beamed at me, probably thinking I put together some sweet video montage of our relationship. "You're the best. I can't believe I'm marrying you tomorrow." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Neither can I." Cocktail hour started at 6:30. People mingled, drank wine, hugged each other, took photos. My mom cornered me at one point and said, with tears in her eyes, "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You chose such a wonderful woman." I just nodded and hugged her, feeling like the worst son in the world for what I was about to put her through. By 7 o'clock, everyone was seated. 75 people, my family, her family, all the wedding party, our closest friends from college and work, all dressed up, all happy, all ready to celebrate. Jessica was sitting next to me at the head table, holding my hand under the table, whispering about how perfect everything was. Derek was sitting 3 seats down with the rest of the groomsmen, drinking his second scotch and laughing at something one of the guys had said. Tony brought out appetizers, bruschetta, calamari, Capri salad, and the room filled with the sounds of conversation and laughter. Everyone was having a great time. This was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of our lives. And in about 20 minutes, it was going to be the worst night of theirs. I caught Tony's eye and gave him a small nod. He nodded back and signaled to one of his servers. Everything was ready. I squeezed Jessica's hand one more time, looked around the room at all these people who loved us and trusted us and believed in us, and thought about the choice I'd made 24 hours ago in that hotel room. I could have walked away quietly. I could have canceled everything and let Jessica save face. Let Derek slink away without public accountability. Let everyone think we'd just grown apart like so many other couples do. But that wasn't justice. That wasn't accountability. That was just letting them get away with it. And I decided the moment I saw them together that they weren't going to get away with anything. So I stood up, picked up my champagne glass, and tapped it with my fork. The room gradually quieted down, all eyes turning toward me. It was showtime. Chapter 3. The rehearsal dinner explosion that changed everything. The room went quiet as I stood there with my champagne glass raised, 75 faces turning toward me with these warm, expectant smiles. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel in my throat, but my hands were steady. That cold clarity I'd felt since yesterday had turned into something else, a kind of calm determination that made me feel more focused than I'd ever been in my life. "Hey, everyone," I said, my voice carrying across the room thanks to the microphone Tony had set up. "First of all, thank you all so much for being here tonight. Jessica and I paused, glancing at her. She was beaming up at me, her hand still resting on my arm, completely oblivious to what was coming. "We really appreciate you taking the time to celebrate with us this weekend." There were murmurs, of course, and wouldn't miss it from around the room. My mom had her phone out, recording this moment, probably thinking she'd want to remember this toast forever. She had no idea how right she was, just not in the way she thought. You know, when you're about to marry someone, you think about all the reasons you fell in love with them in the first place. I continued, pacing slowly near the head table. Jessica's smile got even bigger. I met Jessica 4 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue in Cambridge. She was wearing this white sundress, laughing at something, and I remember thinking she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Jessica's eyes were getting misty. Her mom, sitting at the table right next to us, was already dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. This was going exactly how everyone expected. The loving groom giving a heartfelt toast before the big day. We started dating that summer, and pretty quickly, I knew she was special. She was ambitious, driven, always the center of attention, wherever we went. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when she focused on you. I paused, letting that hang in the air for a second. Of course, I later learned she made a lot of people feel that way, but I'm getting ahead of myself. A few people chuckled nervously, not quite sure if that was a joke or not. Jessica's smile faltered just slightly. Derek, sitting down at the other end of the table, had gone very still, his scotch glass frozen halfway to his mouth. I proposed to Jessica 8 months ago on a beach in Nantucket. Spent 3 months' salary on the ring. Got down on one knee. Told her I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. And she said yes. Happiest moment of my life. Or so I thought. The room was completely silent now. People were starting to sense something was off, but they couldn't quite put their finger on what. We spent the last 8 months planning this wedding. Jessica wanted everything to be perfect. The venue, the flowers, the food, the music. I wrote a lot of checks. $60,000 worth of checks, to be exact, because I wanted her to have her dream wedding. I worked overtime, took on extra projects, did whatever I needed to do to make sure this weekend would be everything she'd ever wanted. Jessica's hand had dropped from my arm. She was staring at me now with this confused, slightly panicked expression, like she was trying to figure out where this was going, but didn't want to jump to conclusions. And then, 2 days ago, I paused, turned to look directly at her. Thursday afternoon, to be specific, I decided to surprise my beautiful bride-to-be. I took the afternoon off work, bought roses and champagne, and went to Fairmont Copley Plaza, where we booked the honeymoon suite for tomorrow night. The hotel had given me early access to the room, so I thought I'd set up a romantic surprise. Jessica had gone completely white. Her hand flew to her mouth. Around the room, people were exchanging confused glances, starting to pick up on the tension, but not understanding why. Funny thing about surprises, I said, my voice still calm, but with an edge now that cut to the room like a knife. Sometimes you're the one who gets surprised. I turned to Tony, who was standing by the light switches near the back of the room. Tony, can you dim the lights and turn on projector? Wait. Jessica stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Ryan, what are you doing? Sit down, Jessica, I said quietly. Everyone here came to celebrate our love. I think they deserve to know the truth about what they're celebrating. The lights dimmed. The projector flickered on, illuminating the screen behind me. And there, in crystal clear resolution, was the first slide of my presentation. It was a screenshot of text messages between Jessica and Derek, dated June 28th. The texts were flirty but not explicit yet. Derek saying, "You looked amazing today." Jessica responding with, "You weren't so bad yourself winking face," followed by, "We should grab coffee sometime." Just us. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Jessica's mom stood up, her hand over her heart. My mom stopped recording, her face going pale. Derek had dropped his scotch glass. I heard it shatter on the floor and was halfway out of his chair. "What the hell is this?" Jessica's father, Thomas, demanded from his seat, his voice booming across the room. "Ryan, what are you doing?" "I'm providing context, Thomas," I said, clicking to the next slide. "Because when I walked into that honeymoon suite 2 days ago, and I found your daughter in bed with my best man, she told me it was a mistake. One drunken mistake. An accident." The room exploded. People were shouting. Standing up, Jessica's bridesmaids were gasping and clutching each other. Jessica herself had started crying, shaking her head violently. "No, no, no, Ryan, please, don't do this." "But it wasn't one mistake," I continued, my voice rising over chaos. I clicked to the next slide. More text messages. These ones from July, more explicit now. Jessica telling Derek she couldn't stop thinking about him. Derek saying he couldn't wait to get his hands on her again. It was months of lying, months of planning, months of betrayal. Click. Next slide. Hotel receipts from the Fairmont, dated in June, July, August, and October, for separate occasions. Each receipt showed the room cost, the dates, and the name on the reservation. Sometimes Derek's, sometimes Jessica's. "For times," I said, my voice shaking now despite my best efforts to stay calm. "For separate hotel visits over 3 months, not counting the one I walked in on." Jessica was full-on sobbing now, her hands covering her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please turn it off, please." Click. Restaurant receipts. Expensive dinners at places we'd never been together. Scalina Tella in the North End. Number 9 Park on Beacon Street. Ostra in the Back Bay. All places that cost $200-300 for dinner for two. Dinners I never took her to, I said. Paid for by Derek, who, by the way, could barely afford these places on a salary, which is why. Click. Bank statements from our joint account with highlighted withdrawals. Jessica would withdraw cash from our joint account and give it to him so they could keep up their little affair. Thomas Hartley was standing now, his face purple with rage, but it wasn't directed at me. He was staring at Jessica with this look of absolute horror and betrayal. "Jessica and Hartley, is this true?" "Daddy, I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. "There's more," I said. Click. The next slide was the text message that had made me the sickest. The one from August where Jessica had said she couldn't wait until after the wedding when Ryan's traveling for work and we can finally have whole weekends together. My mom made this awful sound, like someone had punched her in the gut. My dad was sitting completely still, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles working even from across the room. "She was planning to continue the affair after we got married," I said, and my voice cracked on that last word. I'd been holding together so well, but saying out loud to everyone, admitting that the woman I'd loved had been planning to keep betraying me even after we made vows. That almost broke me, but I had one more slide. Click. A photo I'd taken with my phone 2 days ago. The hotel room, the unmade bed, the champagne bucket on the nightstand that they'd ordered from room service. And in the corner of the photo, partially visible through the bathroom door, Derek's distinctive black North Face jacket hanging on the hook. "This is the room I walked into Thursday afternoon," I said quietly. "This is what I found." And when I asked Jessica why she would do this, why she would throw away 4 years and future together, you know what she said? The room was dead silent now, except for Jessica's sobbing and the sound of her mother crying quietly into her napkin. She said she'd been stressed about the wedding, that it didn't mean anything, that Derek had just been comforting her, and things got out of hand. I turned to look at her, and I felt nothing but pity. But you can't accidentally have an affair for 4 months, Jessica. You can't accidentally spend thousands of dollars sneaking around behind someone's back. You can't accidentally plan to keep cheating after the wedding. Those are choices. Deliberate, calculated choices. I turned back to the room. To all these people who'd gathered to celebrate our love, who'd traveled here and bought gifts and taken time off work to witness what they thought would be the beginning of our happily ever after. So the wedding is canceled, I said, and even though they probably could have guessed that by now, hearing it said out loud sent another wave of gas through the room. I've already notified all the vendors, the venue, the caterer, the DJ, the photographer. Everyone knows. If you've bought gifts, you'll be getting them back. If you've booked hotels for tomorrow night, I'm sorry you made the trip for nothing. I looked at Derek, who was standing now, his face ashen, looking like he wanted to run but knew he couldn't. Derek, our friendship is over. I don't know if you were ever really my friend, or if you were just a selfish piece of garbage waiting for an opportunity to stab me in the back, but either way, I never want to see you again. Get out. Ryan, man, he started, but my groomsmen, my real friends, guys who just found out their buddy had betrayed me, moved to block the exit. You need to leave, my friend Marcus said, stepping in front of Derek. Right now, before this gets ugly. Derek looked around wildly, maybe hoping someone would defend him or tell me I was overreacting, but everyone was staring at him with disgust. Even his own parents, who were sitting near the back, looked mortified. He grabbed his jacket and practically ran for the door, pushing past Marcus and disappearing into the night. I'd never see him again, and that was fine by me. Then I turned to Jessica, who was still standing there crying, her makeup running down her face in black streaks, her whole body shaking. Her father had his arm around her mother, who looked like she was about to collapse. Her sister Emma, who was supposed to be maid of honor, was staring at Jessica with this expression of complete disbelief. Jessica, you can keep the dress, I said, my voice hollow now, all the energy draining out of me as the adrenaline started to fade. I've already paid for it, and clearly you don't value anything I've given you anyway. But I want every gift returned, every dollar you owe me from the joint account repaid, and I never want to hear from you again. We're done. Completely, permanently done. Ryan, please, she sobbed, reaching for me. I stepped back. Don't. Just don't. You made your choice. Multiple times. For months. You don't get to be the victim here. Thomas Hartley stepped forward then, and for a second I thought he was going to defend his daughter or yell at me for humiliating her publicly. Instead, he looked at Jessica with more disappointment than I'd ever seen on anyone's face. Jessica, gather your things, he said, his voice tight and controlled. You and your mother are leaving. Now. Daddy. Now, Jessica. He turned to me, and his eyes were red. Ryan, I don't have words for how sorry I am. You deserve better than this. You deserve better than her. He put his arm around his wife and daughter and started guiding them toward the exit. Jessica looked back at me one more time, her face a mess of tears and smudged makeup, and I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no lingering love, just emptiness. As they left, the room slowly came back to life. People were talking in hushed, shocked voices. Some were crying. My mom came over and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, whispering, I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Over and over. My dad just put his hand on my shoulder and squeezed, his way of saying everything he couldn't put into words. My friends rallied around me. Marcus, Tyler, Jordan, guys I'd known since college, all gathered around, asking what they could do, how they could help. Some of Jessica's bridesmaids came over too, apologizing, saying they'd had no idea, asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay, not even close. But I was something else. Free. Free from the lies. Free from the fake relationship. Free from a future married to someone who'd already proven she'd never respect me, never value me, never be faithful to me. Tony came over after most people had started leaving, looking shell-shocked. Ryan, I had no idea. I'm so sorry, man. Do you need anything? I shook my head. Just the bill for tonight, Tony. And thank you for setting up the AV system. He waved me off. The dinner's on the house. I can't charge you for. for this? Just go home. Be with your family. I'm really sorry this happened to you. I left Giordano's around 9:30, surrounded by my parents and my closest friends, and went back to my apartment. My mom wanted me to come stay with them, but I needed to be alone. I needed to process what I'd just done, what had just happened, how my entire life had changed in the span of 48 hours. I sat in my living room with all the lights off, staring out the window at the city, and I cried. Not because I wanted Jessica back. I didn't, not for a second, but because I was grieving the future I thought I had. The marriage, the kids, the life we planned together. All of it gone because she couldn't be faithful, couldn't be honest, couldn't value what we had more than she valued a cheap thrill with my best friend. But somewhere underneath that grief was something else. Relief. Because if I hadn't found out 2 days before the wedding, I might not have found out until months or years later, when we had mortgage together, maybe kids, when leaving would have been infinitely more complicated and painful. I dodged a bullet, a huge, life-destroying bullet, and I made damn sure everyone knew exactly who fired it. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. Watching her life implode in real time. I woke up Saturday morning, what was supposed to be my wedding day, with a splitting headache and my phone completely blown up with notifications. Texts, missed calls, voicemails, Instagram DMs, Facebook messages. Everyone who'd been at that rehearsal dinner had apparently told everyone they knew, and the story was spreading like wildfire through Boston. I sat up in bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes because I'd basically passed out on top of the covers around 2 a.m, and scrolled through some of the messages. Most were supportive. Friends checking in, family members expressing their shock and anger at Jessica, co-workers who'd been invited saying they couldn't believe what had happened. But there were a few that made me pause. One was from Jessica's younger sister, Emma, who'd been her maid of honor. Ryan, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. I had no idea any of this was happening. Jessica is my sister and I love her, but what she did to you is unforgivable. You didn't deserve this. I hope you're okay. Another was from Derek's girlfriend, Melissa. Yeah, Derek had a girlfriend, a woman he'd been dating for almost 2 years, who'd been invited to the wedding as his plus one, who'd been sitting at that rehearsal dinner when the truth came out. Her message was short but devastating. Thank you for exposing who he really is. I'm done with him. I hope you find someone who deserves you. I felt sick reading that. I'd been so focused on my own betrayal that I hadn't even fully processed the fact that Derek had been cheating on his girlfriend too. Melissa was collateral damage in all this. Another person whose life had been blown apart by Derek's selfishness and Jessica's complete lack of boundaries. I forced myself to shower and get dressed, then called my parents to let them know I was alive and hadn't done anything stupid during the night. My mom answered on the first ring, clearly having been waiting by the phone. Sweetheart, how are you doing? Her voice was thick with worry. I'm okay, Mom. I'm not okay, but I'm surviving. Do you want us to come over? Your father and I can bring breakfast. Sit with you for a while. No, I appreciate it, but I think I need some time alone to process everything. I'll call you later, okay? She reluctantly agreed, made me promise I'd eat something and not isolate myself too much, and hung up. I sat on my couch with a cup of coffee I couldn't really taste and opened Instagram, which turned out to be a massive mistake. Jessica had deleted all her wedding-related posts from the past few weeks. The countdown posts, the photos from the bridal shower, the cute couple shots we'd taken while planning. But she'd posted something new about an hour ago, and my stomach dropped when I read it. I made mistakes, and I own that. But I also deserve privacy and grace during this difficult time. I'm asking everyone to please respect my family and me as we navigate the situation. What happened was between Ryan and me, and I hope we can all move forward with love and understanding. Red heart. The comments section was absolutely brutal. Privacy? You cheated on your fiancé for months. You don't get privacy. Grace? Where was the grace when you were sleeping with his best friend? I was at that rehearsal dinner. You don't get to play victim here. Jessica, own what you did. Your family deserves respect. You don't. It went on and on. Hundreds of comments, and maybe 5% were supportive, mostly from people who didn't know her well or didn't know the full story. The rest were people calling her out, sharing their own stories of being cheated on, expressing disgust at her attempt to control the narrative. Then I saw that someone had commented with a link. I clicked it, and my heart sank. One of the guests from last night, I'm guessing someone who'd recorded at least part of the slideshow on their phone, had posted a detailed account of what happened on some relationship drama forum. The post had already gotten thousands of views and hundreds of comments from complete strangers, all weighing in on the situation. This wasn't just affecting our immediate social circle anymore. This was going viral in that weird Boston social scene way where everyone knows someone who knows someone. And suddenly the whole city is talking about the guy whose fiancée cheated with his best man 2 days before the wedding. Part of me felt vindicated. Jessica had wanted a big, perfect wedding where everyone would celebrate her. Instead, she got a public exposure where everyone saw exactly who she really was. But another part of me, a smaller, quieter part, wondered if I'd gone too far. If humiliating her in front of 75 people and basically ensuring she'd be the subject of gossip for months had been the right move, or if I'd let my pain turn me into someone cruel. Then I remembered the text messages, the months of lies, the fact that she planned to keep cheating after we got married, and I stopped feeling guilty. My phone buzzed with a call from Marcus, one of my groomsmen. "Yo, you alive?" "Barely," I said, managing a weak laugh. "Listen, man. Some of us are grabbing brunch at the Paramount in Beacon Hill at noon. You should come. Get out of your apartment. Be around people who actually give a damn about you." I started to say no, but then I realized sitting alone in my apartment all day dwelling on this was probably the worst thing I could do. "Yeah, okay. I'll be there." Brunch with the guys turned out to be exactly what I needed. Marcus, Tyler, Jordan, and 2 other friends from college, Chris and Devin, had all shown up. They didn't dance around the topic or try to pretend like everything was fine. They acknowledged that what happened was horrific, that Jessica and Derek were trash, and that I'd handled it like an absolute boss. "Dude, I've known you since freshman year," Tyler said, pointing his fork at me for emphasis. "I have never, and I mean never, seen you that cold and calculated." That presentation was savage. Perfectly executed. Jessica and Derek got exactly what they deserved. "You think I went too far?" I asked, voicing the doubt that had been nagging at me all morning. "Hell no," Chris said immediately. "She cheated on you for months, lied to your face every single day, stole from your joint account to fund the affair, and was planning to keep doing it after the wedding. You didn't go too far. You went exactly as far as the situation warranted. Plus," Jordan added, "if you just canceled quietly and sent out an email saying wedding's off, Jessica would have controlled the narrative. She'd have told everyone you guys grew apart, or that you had communication issues, or some other vague nonsense that made her look sympathetic. Now everyone knows the truth. That's not cruelty, man. That's accountability." Their support meant more than I could put into words. These guys have been my friends for over a decade, and they were rallying around me when I needed it most. We spent 2 hours at brunch, and for brief stretches of time, I almost forgot about the nightmare my life had become. But reality came crashing back when we left the restaurant and I checked my phone. There were 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize and 1 voicemail. I played it, and my jaw dropped when I heard the voice. "Ryan, this is Thomas Hartley, Jessica's father. I wanted to call and apologize again for what my daughter did to you. My wife and I are absolutely devastated. We raised Jessica better than this, or at least we thought we did. I don't know where we went wrong, but please know that we do not condone her behavior, and we support your decision to end the engagement. I'm also calling because Jessica has asked me to act as an intermediary regarding the return of gifts and the settlement of your joint accounts. Please call me when you get a chance. Again, I'm so sorry, son. You deserve so much better." I stood there on the sidewalk in Beacon Hill, phone pressed in my ear, completely stunned. Jessica's dad was apologizing to me. Her dad, who was supposed to walk her down the aisle today, who'd probably spent the last 24 hours dealing with the fallout of his daughter's public humiliation, was calling to tell me I deserved better. I called him back immediately. He answered on the second ring. "Thomas, it's Ryan." "Ryan, thank you for calling back. How are you holding up?" "I've been better," I said honestly, "but I'm managing. I appreciate you reaching out." "Of course. Listen, I want to make this process as painless as possible for you. Jessica she's not in a good place right now. She's staying with us, and frankly, she's a mess. But that does excuse what she did, and my wife and I have made it very clear to her that she needs to take responsibility for her actions. I appreciate that, I said, and I'm sorry this has affected your family. I know you and Patricia didn't deserve to be dragged into this. No, Ryan, stop. You have nothing to apologize for. Jessica made her choices, and she's dealing with the consequences. Now, regarding the practical matters, I've started the process of collecting the wedding gifts that have already been sent. I'll make sure everything is returned to the guests with notes explaining the situation. As for the joint account, Jessica has agreed to repay every dollar she withdrew inappropriately. I'm covering it myself and she'll pay me back over time, but you shouldn't have to wait for your money. I was floored. Thomas, you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. My daughter stole from you. She used your money to betray you. The least I can do is make sure you're made whole financially, even if we can't undo the emotional damage she caused. I'll have my attorney draft a simple agreement for you to sign, and we'll get you a check within the week. We talked for a few more minutes about logistics, and by the time we hung up, I had even more respect for Thomas Hartley than I'd had before. The man's daughter had humiliated him in front of his entire social circle, and his response was to take responsibility and make things right. It made me wonder how someone raised by such decent people could turn out like Jessica. The answer, I realized, was that some people are just fundamentally selfish. No amount of good parenting can fix someone who's decided they're more important than everyone around them. Over the next few days, I watched Jessica's life continue to implode in ways that were almost uncomfortable to witness. Her Instagram post about privacy and grace had backfired so spectacularly that she deleted it, and then deleted her entire Instagram account. Her Facebook went private. Her LinkedIn, which she'd always been so proud of, constantly posting about her marketing achievements, went dormant. But the damage was done. The story had spread too far and too fast to be contained. I heard through mutual friends that Jessica's company had gotten calls from clients who'd seen the posts and were questioning whether they want to continue working with an agency that employed someone with such questionable character. Her boss had apparently called her in for a very uncomfortable conversation about how her personal life was affecting the company's reputation. Then there was Derek. Oh man, Derek's fallout was even more spectacular. Remember Melissa, his girlfriend of 2 years? Turns out she wasn't just some casual relationship. They'd been living together for 6 months. And according to the Instagram post she made about a week after the rehearsal dinner, they'd been talking about getting engaged themselves in the next year. Melissa's post was savage. For anyone wondering why I've been MIA this week, I found out at someone else's rehearsal dinner that my boyfriend of 2 years had been cheating on me with a bride-to-be for months. Multiple hotel visits, expensive dinners, and lies upon lies. To the man I thought I'd marry, you're a coward and a fraud. To the woman who knew he had a girlfriend and didn't care, karma is real. To everyone who reached out to support me, thank you. I'm done wasting energy on people who don't deserve it. Victory, Ann. The post got thousands of likes and hundreds of supportive comments. Melissa had effectively done to Derek what I'd done to Jessica, exposed the truth publicly and let social consequences do the rest. But Derek's problems didn't stop with his personal life. He worked at his father's law firm, Carpenter and Thompson, a mid-sized firm in downtown Boston that handled corporate law. According to a friend who worked in the same building, Derek's father, senior partner Richard Thompson, was absolutely furious about the scandal, not just because his son had behaved deplorably, but because Derek's name was now associated with infidelity and dishonesty, which is pretty much the worst reputation a lawyer can have. 2 weeks after the rehearsal dinner, I heard Derek had resigned from the firm, or been forced to resign, depending on who you asked. Either way, he was out. And because the legal community in Boston is relatively small and everyone talks, his chances of getting hired at another reputable firm were basically zero. Word travels fast when you're known as a guy who slept with his best friend's fiancée and got publicly exposed for it. A month after everything went down, Derek left Boston entirely, packed up his apartment, broke his lease, and moved to Denver according to someone who'd heard from someone else. Complete fresh start in a city where nobody knew him or his story. In a way, I respected the decision. At least he had the self-awareness to realize he'd burned every bridge in Boston, and there was no coming back from it. Jessica, on the other hand, stuck around, which honestly surprised me. I figured she'd follow Derek's lead and disappeared in New York or L.A. or somewhere she could reinvent herself. But she stayed, and I watched from a distance as she tried to rebuild her reputation. She quit her marketing job about 6 weeks after the canceled wedding. I don't know if she was fired or if she left voluntarily, but either way, she was suddenly unemployed. Her LinkedIn updated with vague, taking time to focus on personal growth and mental health, which I guess was her way of explaining the gap without admitting she'd been forced out. She also apparently went to therapy, or at least that's what she told people. Emma, her sister, who'd stayed in touch with me sporadically just to check in and apologize on behalf of her family, mentioned that Jessica was working on herself and really trying to understand why she'd made such terrible choices. Part of me hoped that was true, that maybe she'd actually learn and grow from this experience. But another part of me suspected she was just trying to rehab her image so people would stop talking about her as that woman who cheated on her fiancé 2 days before the wedding. The weirdest part of all this was how much support I got from people I barely knew. Acquaintances from work reached out to say they admired how I'd handled things. Friends of friends sent messages sharing their own stories of betrayal and thanking me for standing up for myself. Even a few of Jessica's former friends, women who'd been in her orbit for years, reached out to apologize and say they'd suspected she was capable of something like this, but had never said anything. One message in particular stuck with me. It was from a woman named Ashley, who'd been one of Jessica's college roommates and a bridesmaid before everything went down. She wrote, "Ryan, I'm so sorry for what Jessica did to you. I need you to know that this isn't the first time she's done something like this. She cheated on her ex-boyfriend in college with multiple guys, and when he found out and broke up with her, she played the victim and made everyone feel sorry for her. I should have warned you when you guys got engaged, but I convinced myself she'd changed, and it wasn't my place to bring up ancient history. I was wrong. You deserve to know who she really was, and I'm sorry I didn't speak up." Reading that made me realize something important. Jessica hadn't just made one mistake or had a moment of weakness. This was a pattern. This was who she was. Someone who prioritized her own desires over other people's feelings, who lied easily and without remorse, who always found a way to make herself the victim even when she was clearly the perpetrator. And I'd almost married her. I'd almost legally bound myself to someone who would have kept cheating, kept lying, kept draining our bank account to fund affairs with whoever caught her attention. The thought made me physically ill, but it also made me grateful I'd found out when I did. 3 months after the canceled wedding, I ran into Jessica at a Whole Foods in Chestnut Hill. I was grabbing groceries after work, turned the corner into the produce section, and there she was, standing by the organic lettuce looking thinner, paler, and somehow smaller than I remembered. We made eye contact. She froze, her hand hovering over a bunch of kale. I could see the panic flash across her face, like she was trying to decide whether to run, hide, or attempt to have a conversation. I made the decision for both of us. I nodded once, a brief acknowledgement that I'd seen her, and then I walked past her, grabbed tomatoes I needed. I didn't stop. I didn't engage. I just moved on with my shopping like she was any other stranger in the store. Because that's what she was now, a stranger. Someone I used to know, someone I used to love, but not someone who had any place in my life anymore. As I walked away, I heard her say very quietly, "Ryan, wait." But I kept walking. Whatever she wanted to say, apology, explanation, justification, I didn't need to hear it. I'd already moved on. And that's when I realized I really had moved on. The anger, the hurt, the obsessive need to know every detail of what she'd done and why. It faded into something much simpler. Indifference. I didn't hate Jessica anymore. I didn't love her anymore. I just didn't care. She betrayed me. I'd exposed her. And now we were both living with the consequences of our choices. Hers were harder to live with than mine, and that seemed fair. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge or punishment. Sometimes it's just about making sure the truth comes to light, and then walking away, knowing you stood up for yourself when it mattered most. That's what I did. And as I paid for my groceries and walked out to my car, Leaving Jessica standing alone in that produce section, I felt lighter than I had in months. Because I'd chosen myself. I'd chosen honesty. I'd chosen accountability. And that choice had set me free. Chapter 5. How Betrayal Became My Greatest Teacher. So here I am, 2 years later, sitting in my new apartment in Seaport, a neighborhood I never would consider when I was with Jessica, because she thought it was too modern and lacked character, and I'm genuinely happy. Not the fake. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Happiness you project on social media when you're actually dying inside, but real, deep down, wake up grateful to be alive happiness. That probably sounds insane to anyone who hasn't been through something like this. How can a guy whose fiancée cheated on him 2 days before his wedding, who had to cancel a $60,000 ceremony, who publicly exposed his partner's betrayal in front of 75 people, how can that guy end up happy? But I am. And I want to tell you how I got here. Because if you're listening to the story and you're going through your own betrayal, your own heartbreak, your own moment of how the hell did my life fall apart this badly, I need you to know that there's a path forward. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's real. The first few months after the canceled wedding were brutal. I'm not going to lie. I went to work, came home, ordered takeout, and sat on my couch watching Netflix without actually absorbing anything that was happening on screen. I'd agreed to go to therapy. My mom had basically insisted, and she was right to, and I spent those first few sessions just processing. Try to understand how I'd missed the signs, why I'd trusted someone so completely who didn't deserve it, what it meant that my judgment had been that far off. My therapist, Dr. Lisa Chun, was this no-nonsense woman in her 50s who didn't let me wallow in self-pity for more than one session before she started pushing me to think differently about what had happened. Ryan, she said during our third session, you keep talking about this like it's something that happened to you. And yes, Jessica's betrayal was something you didn't choose and didn't deserve. But you did choose how to respond to it. You chose to gather evidence, to expose the truth, to walk away with your dignity intact. That wasn't weakness. That was strength. It doesn't feel like strength, I said. It feels like my life got destroyed, and I'm just trying to pick up the pieces. Your life didn't get destroyed, she corrected. Your plans changed. There's a difference. You lost a future you thought you were going to have, but that future was built on lies. What you have now is the opportunity to build something real. That conversation shifted something in me. I started thinking about what I actually wanted my life to look like, independent of what Jessica had wanted, or what society expected, or what looked good on paper. And I realized I'd spent the last 4 years making compromises I didn't even recognize as compromises at the time, like living in Beacon Hill instead of Seaport because Jessica preferred historic charm, or spending every vacation at boutique bed and breakfast in the Berkshires or Cape Cod because she thought international travel was tacky and trying too hard, or working overtime constantly to fund a lifestyle that was more about appearances than actual happiness. So I made changes, real, tangible changes that were about building a life I actually wanted. First, I moved, got out of that Beacon Hill apartment with all its memories and found this incredible loft in Seaport with floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, and a view of the harbor. It cost about the same as my old place, but felt completely different, modern, clean mine. Every piece of furniture I bought was something I chose, not something Jessica had vetted and approved. Every decoration, every paint color, every decision was about what made me happy. Second, I reconnected with friends I neglected during my relationship. Marcus, Tyler, Jordan, the guys who'd shown up for brunch the day after canceled wedding. They became my core crew again. We started doing weekly guys' nights, playing basketball at the Y, taking weekend trips to Montreal and Portland, and anywhere that sounded fun. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed just hanging out with people who knew me, really knew me, and liked me for who I was instead of what I could provide. Third, I threw myself into work in a completely different way. Not the grinding, joyless, working 70 hours because my fiancé wanted expensive things way, but the engaged, passionate, I actually love what I do way. I pitched a new initiative at my company for expanding our consulting services into emerging tech markets, and my boss greenlit it. Within 6 months, I was leading a team of 5 people, traveling to San Francisco and Austin and Seattle for client meetings, and actually feeling challenged and excited about my career for the first time in years. And then, about 14 months after the canceled wedding, I met Sophie. I wasn't looking for a relationship. Honestly, I convinced myself I was better off single, that I needed at least another year or two to heal or work on myself or whatever other therapy speak people use to justify avoiding vulnerability. But then Marcus dragged me to this networking event for tech professionals at a rooftop bar in Cambridge, and I ended up in a conversation with this woman who was brilliant and funny and called me out when I made a joke that didn't quite land. "That's a terrible icebreaker," she said, laughing. "You seem smarter than that." "Ouch!" I said, genuinely surprised by her directness. "Tell me how you really feel." "I just did. I'm Sophie, by the way. I work in cybersecurity for a fintech startup in Kendall Square." "And you are?" "Ryan, tech consulting, financial district, and apparently terrible at first impressions." She grinned. "Not terrible, just lazy. Try again." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. And we ended up talking for 2 hours straight about everything from our careers to our favorite neighborhoods in Boston to whether the Red Sox would ever win another World Series. When the event ended and people started leaving, Sophie handed me her business card. "Text me if you want to continue this conversation sometime, but only if you promise to bring better material than that opening joke." I texted her the next day. We got coffee that weekend. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into regular dates. And before I knew it, I was in a relationship that felt completely different from anything I'd experienced with Jessica. Sophie was independent in a way that Jessica never was. She had her own career, her own apartment, her own friends and hobbies in life that didn't revolve around me. She didn't need me to validate her or complete her or fund her lifestyle. She wanted to be with me because she enjoyed my company, because we made each other laugh, because we had chemistry and shared values and actual compatibility. When I told her about Jessica and the canceled wedding, which I did on our 4th date because I figured she deserved to know what she was getting into, she listened without judgment and then said something I'll never forget. "That must have been incredibly painful. But I'm glad you had the strength to walk away instead of marrying someone who didn't respect you. A lot of people wouldn't have done what you did. They would have forgiven her, tried to make it work, and ended up miserable for years. You chose yourself. That's rare. You don't think I was too harsh?" I asked, exposing her like that in front of everyone. Sophie shook her head. "She lied to you for months, stole from you, planned to keep cheating after the wedding. You didn't expose her to be cruel. You exposed her so people would know the truth. There's a difference. And honestly, if someone did that to me and I had the evidence you had, I'd probably do the same thing." That was the moment I knew Sophie was different. She didn't judge me for standing up for myself. She didn't think I should have been more forgiving, or more understanding, or more willing to work it out. She respected the fact that I'd drawn a line, and enforced consequences when that line was crossed. We've been together for about 10 months now, and it's the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. We communicate honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. We respect each other's boundaries and independence. We support each other's goals without trying to control or change each other. And most importantly, there's trust, real, earned, consistent trust that's been built through actions, not just words. A few months ago, Sophie and I were having dinner at her place, and she asked me something that made me really think. "Do you regret any of it? The way you handled everything with Jessica." I thought about it for a long time before answering. I regret that it happened. I regret that I wasted 4 years with someone who didn't value me. I regret that I ignored red flags because I want to believe we were building something real. But do I regret exposing her at the rehearsal dinner? No, not even a little bit. "Why not?" Sophie asked, genuinely curious. "Because if I'd handled it quietly, if I had just canceled the wedding and sent out some vague email about how we'd grown apart, Jessica would have controlled the narrative. She would have made herself the victim, told everyone I was cold or cruel or unreasonable. And people would have believed her because she's good at playing the victim. But by showing everyone the evidence, by letting them see the truth for themselves, I made sure no one could rewrite history and turn me into the bad guy." Sophie nodded slowly. That makes sense. And honestly, from what you've told me about her, she probably would have done exactly that. Played victim, gained sympathy, and moved on without learning anything. Exactly. And maybe she still didn't learn anything. I have no idea, and frankly, I don't care. But at least everyone who matters knows the truth. My family knows. My friends know. Even her own family knows. She can't gaslight anyone into believing a different version of events because too many people witness what actually happened. Accountability? Sophie said simply, "Yeah, accountability." That conversation made me realize something important. What I did at that rehearsal dinner wasn't about revenge or punishment or making Jessica suffer. It was about truth and accountability and refusing to be complicit in covering up someone else's betrayal just to make things easier for them. I've thought a lot over the past 2 years about what I learned from that experience, and I boiled it down to a few key lessons that fundamentally changed how I approach relationships and life in general. Lesson 1, trust your gut. Looking back, I can see so many moments where something felt off. Jessica being overly secretive with her phone, unexplained absences, defensive reactions when I asked innocent questions about her day. But I ignored those instincts because I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous, insecure boyfriend who couldn't trust his partner. Turns out my gut was right. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't ignore that feeling just because acknowledging it is uncomfortable. Lesson 2. Actions matter more than words. Jessica told me she loved me every single day while actively betraying me. She posted cute couple photos on Instagram while texting Derek about their next hotel meetup. She planned our wedding while planning to cheat on me after we got married. Her words were meaningless because her actions told a completely different story. Now, with Sophie, I pay attention to what she does, not just what she says. And so far, her actions have consistently matched her words, which is how I know this relationship is real. Lesson 3. Consequences are not cruelty. Our culture has this weird thing where we're supposed to forgive everything, let things go, be the bigger person even when someone has deeply wronged us. But forgiveness without accountability just enables bad behavior. When I exposed Jessica at that rehearsal dinner, I wasn't being cruel. I was enforcing consequences for her choices. She chose to cheat. She chose to lie. She chose to steal. And those choices had consequences. That's not me being vindictive. That's how the world should work. Lesson 4. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. I spent 4 years making excuses for Jessica's behavior, telling myself she was just stressed or insecure or dealing with her own issues. But the reality was simpler. She was selfish, and she didn't think the rules applied to her. No amount of love, support, or sacrifice on my part was going to change that. Some people are fundamentally broken in ways you can't fix, and the healthiest thing you can do is walk away instead of drowning yourself trying to save them. And lesson 5, the big one, betrayal can be a gift if you let it. I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. If I'd married Jessica, I would have spent years, maybe decades, in a relationship with someone who didn't respect me, didn't value me, and would have kept betraying me whenever the opportunity arose. I would have been miserable, probably ended up divorced anyway, possibly with kids caught in the middle, definitely with way more financial and emotional damage than what I experienced. Finding out 2 days before the wedding was painful as hell, but it was also the universe doing me a massive favor. It forced me to see the truth before I legally bound myself to someone who would have destroyed me slowly over time. Now, 2 years later, I have a life I actually love. I have an apartment that feels like home. I have friends who genuinely care about me. I have a career that challenges and excites me. And I have a partner who respects me, values me, and chooses me every day through her actions, not just her words. Jessica, I have no idea what she's doing now, and I genuinely don't care. Last I heard, she was working at some small marketing firm outside Boston, keeping a low profile, still trying to rebuild her reputation. I hope she learned something from what happened. I hope she became a better person. But whether she did or didn't isn't my problem anymore. Derek left Boston and, as far as I know, never came back. Good riddance. I hope wherever he ended up, people found out who he really was before he could hurt anyone else the way he hurt me and Melissa. The wedding that never happened would have cost me $60,000 for more years of my life minimum and probably my sanity. Instead, it cost me $8,000 for a rehearsal dinner that turned into the most cathartic moment of my life, and it gave me back my future. Best money I ever spent. So if you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, if you've been betrayed, lied to, used by someone you trusted, I want you to hear this. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to demand accountability. It's okay to expose the truth, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. You don't owe your betrayer a soft landing or a sanitized version of events that protects their reputation. You owe yourself honesty, dignity, and the fierce determination to build a life worth living. Don't let anyone convince you that standing up for yourself makes you the villain. Don't let anyone gaslight you into believing you're overreacting, or being too harsh, or not giving them a second chance. If someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them, and then make the hard choice to walk away, even when every instinct is telling you to stay and try to fix it. Because here's what I learned. You can't fix someone who doesn't think they're broken. You can't change someone who doesn't want to change. And you can't build a future with someone who's still living in the past, making the same mistakes over and over and expecting you to keep forgiving them. The wedding I didn't have would have been the biggest mistake of my life. Canceling it, exposing the truth, and walking away with my head held high was the best decision I ever made. 2 years ago, I was standing in front of 75 people, showing them evidence of my fiancé's betrayal, feeling my heart break in real time while trying to maintain composure. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Today, I'm sitting in an apartment I love, with a woman I trust, living a life I actually chose instead of a life someone else designed for me. And I wouldn't change a single thing about how I got here, because that rehearsal dinner wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the one I was always supposed to have. The one where I'm the hero, not the supporting character in someone else's drama. So thank you, Jessica, for cheating on me 2 days before our wedding. Thank you for being so reckless and obvious that I couldn't ignore the truth. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to dodge the bullet that would have been our marriage. And thank you to everyone listening for letting me share this story. If even one person hears this and finds the courage to stand up for themselves, to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve them, to choose their own happiness over someone else's comfort, then every painful moment of that experience was worth it. Don't be afraid to burn it all down if that's what it takes to save yourself. Make them face the truth. Make them own the consequences. And then walk away knowing you chose your dignity over their deception. That's not revenge. That's self-respect. And you deserve nothing less. The end. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. If the story gave you clarity, courage, or just a validation that you're not crazy for demanding better from the people in your life, then it served its purpose. Remember, you are not obligated to protect the reputation of people who didn't protect your heart. Stand up, speak your truth, and never apologize for refusing to be disrespected. Your life is too valuable to waste on people who don't value you. Now go out there and build the future you actually deserve, not the one someone else tried to trap you in. You've got this.